User stories are pieces of functionalities that deliver value to our end users. And sometimes it happens that we are in the situation to start the user story in a sprint and finish it in another sprint. And we arrive at the retrospective and we say, these stories are way too big, we need to find a way to split them. But how can you split the user stories that are not splittable? This is the question that we'll try to answer in this video. I'm going to share with you 10 techniques to split your user stories. Let's get started. Hi everyone, my name is Anka. I'm an Agile coach specialized in scaling Agile. And in this channel, I'm posting one educational video every week on Tuesdays. So feel free to subscribe and click on the button to get notification. Before we dive into how to split user stories, let's see what makes a good user story. You may have heard of the concept of INVEST or INVEST. Independent, our user stories need to be able to be done without depending one of each other. Negotiable, it's when the scope of a user story is not fixed. We have a purpose, we know what our users need, what is the problem we are trying to resolve with that piece of functionality, but it's up to the team on how we can make it more big, more complete, lighter, so we can adapt during the sprint as well and before the sprint when we are doing refinement. Valuable. Each user story needs to bring value to the users. If our end users are not able to do anything out of it, it doesn't bring any functionality, then that's not a good user story. Estimable. If we are not able to estimate a user story, then most probably is that we don't really know how to implement it, what we need to do, what is expected. We need to be able to estimate it. Or we may have a lot of uncertainty. Small. The user stories needs to be small enough to fit into a sprint. On the other hand, we should not have a user story that the whole team works on it in one sprint. And we should not have them too small, for example, 2 hours user stories, because that brings a lot of administration work that is not worth it. And testable. We need to know if a certain user story is done or is not done. We need to be able to have that confidence. There is one good example that I want to take anytime that I'm talking about splitting user stories, and that's the cake example. When we are trying to eat a cake, as a consumer of a cake, we want to have all the layers. We don't take layer by layer by layer. However, traditionally, the cakes are built by layers. And if imagine that our cake, it takes a lot of time to build it, the way of bringing that taste to our users, to our consumers, will be that we make smaller pieces, like slices of that cake, and we build it by slice. And this is exactly what we are trying to do with Agile, that we are building the whole piece of cake at any given time so our end users, our clients, are able to enjoy the end experience. Of course, we don't need to build the complete, all the layers of the cake, but eventually we want to be able to give them a flavor of everything. On that note, I'm going to use our cook, John, in this video. He's a cook, he's a passionate cook, and he loves to share his ideas with the entire world. However, as any passionate and very good cook, he's very, very busy. So he needs an assistant that is able to manage his community of followers. Let's start with our 10 techniques of splitting user stories. Technique number 1, split the user stories by role. When we are splitting the user story by role, instead of saying, as cook, I want to be able to manage my messages, we are going to say, as Michael, I want to be able to select which images to be replied, and as John, I want to be able to reply to the messages. And this is how you split this big functionality by roles. It can be that indeed the biggest effort will be on Michael's role, that is the filtering of the messages. Maybe he will want some tags and so on. That will be the biggest effort. However, the core functionality, the thing that is more painful, may be simply replying to messages. And that's something that you will decide to do right now, the capacity of replying to messages. And then you can do later the other user story. So this is how you can split them by roles. Technique number 2. Split the user stories by workflows. In this category, you need to know what are the workflows that your users are doing inside your product and who are the actors of each piece of the workflow. Sometimes you may have multiple workflows. To give you an example of a workflow, as John, the cook, I'm getting in the mobile application to see my messages, to reply to them, and then I'm leaving. And taking an example on a big user stories, as Anka, person who loves eating, I want to be able to manage my account. The way to split it is I want to be, as Anka, I want to be able to create an account, to change my profile picture, and to change my address. So these are 3 user stories that can be completely independent of each other, and we can build on them. And that leads us to technique number 3. Divide the user stories by data types. Wow, data types, that's a big name. Things that you can consider as data types can be currencies, can be measurement units. Imagine that our application is international. We can see cooks from all over the world who are uploading their receipts, and people from all over the world can see their receipts. So as John, who I love cooking and I'm a cook, that I'm based in France, I want to upload my receipts in the European units. But as Anka, that I live in the US, I want to see them in my own units because grams and milliliters don't talk much to me. And a way to split that is that first we offer, for example, the metric system, and then we support the English system, and then the imperial system. And that's a very simple way of splitting it by data types. And technique number 4. To make it more complicated, I put the 2 techniques one next to each other, and this one is by data entry. When we say about data entry, it means the information that our users are inserting into the system. For example, parameters that we can search for. Let's say, for example, that as Anka, I want to look for any kind of receipts by any ingredient at any given time. I want a lot of filters because there are so many receipts available on the system that I'm getting completely lost. And I don't have the time. I really love what I'm seeing on the platform. However, I want to find my things quick. A way to split that will be that initially maybe we can add a filter on ingredients, then we can add a filter on time, we can add a filter on certain quantities. And you see, we already have 3 user stories by data entry types. And let's go to technique number 5. Split the user stories by complexity. Initially, you may want to give to your users the possibility of doing certain things manually, and then you can automate it. To do the all the way automation may take longer, but if you start to do it manually, you understand how they work, then it may be easier to automate it. And that takes away the complexity. You may be able to do this sprint, the manual part, and in 2 sprints, you may be able to do the automatic part. Or you may see a way to split the automated user story into further user stories. And we go to technique number 6. Split the user stories by browser platform. If we have to deliver a certain functionality for the web browser that is the same as iOS and Android, and we are using the same backend, maybe the point will be that we can first do it for Safari, then we do it for Chrome, then we do it for Internet Explorer. And that's a very simple way of splitting the user stories, and you can take each one of them in different sprints. Technique number 7. Split the user stories by business rules. In today's world, in all our applications, we have many rules. We have, for example, if you want to order a pizza, A business rule is that the command is not sent to the kitchen unless the payment is validated. Another rule will be that the command is not validated until you have chosen at least one pizza. And these are rules that are incorporated, but when you are building the systems themselves, you don't need to implement everything at once. If you want to have validate command, you can split it, validate first the payment, and in another user story, you can validate the content of the basket. And you can pick any of them at any given time when you want to implement them. Technique number 8. Split the user stories by create, read, update, delete. This is very technical description, but it's something that can save you a lot. And it's very easy to apply it. Basically, we initially are able to create entries, for example, add receipts, but we are not going to be able to delete them. So if our user story will be that as John, I want to be able to manage my receipts. In one sprint, in one user story, we are going to give the possibility of creating receipts. In another one, we are going to give the possibility of the users to read these receipts. And another one, we're going to give the possibility of deleting them. And maybe at last, we're going to give the possibility of updating them. And we can actually prioritize them based on the things that are most needed. If we see that almost nobody is updating the receipts, then we can leave it very far away, that piece of functionality. We don't need to add it recently. But if you see that, for example, everyone wants to read the receipts, which is pretty normal, then that has to be on top of the list. Technique number 9. Split the user stories by acceptance criteria. When we are writing the user stories, we say we want to be able to test them. A very simple way of writing your acceptance criteria is given, when, then. Given a scenario, when I perform an action, then I expect a result. As a cook, I want to be able to upload images for my receipts for the benefit of offering a more realistic information about the receipt, about the result. And so on the acceptance criteria, we'll have given I upload an image. When I select the image on my phone, then the image is uploaded into my account. Another one can be given I select an image. When I open it, I'm able to edit it. And the third acceptance criteria, it can be given I upload an image that is over 5 megabytes. I select the image, I receive an error. And you already can see 3 user stories that are coming all together from what I just told you. So that's a way of splitting the user stories by acceptance criteria. If you define well your acceptance criteria, this is going to be your favorite ever way of splitting user stories. And technique number 10, mix them all. If you see that actually you can split a part of the user story by roles and another part by platform and another one by data entry, don't be shy. Go and mix it all together. We don't need to apply only one method. However, when you are just getting started, look on this list of techniques and try to see which one you can pick for your user story. How do you know that you need to split your user story? Usually is so big that you need 1 week or more than 1 week to implement it. If that's the case, split it. Use one of the techniques and do it. If you're looking for a checklist, check in the description down below. There is a link to an article on my blog, and you can print it and use that in your refinement meetings, in your Agile teams to know how to split them. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, click on comments down below, raise your questions, let me know what kind of topics you would like to learn more about, and I will be more than happy to create more videos for you. And don't forget to subscribe. I'm releasing new educational videos every Tuesday. See you next week.